Hello and welcome to this edition of content video for the Room 2003 Science Chemistry classes at Mideast Career and Technology Center's Buffalo campus. The title of this brief video is the Periodic Table of Elements, Part 2. You'll recall that in Part 1 we introduced the periodic table with these 5 questions. In Part 2 we continue that introduction and we look at 3 more questions, and those 3 questions are: what is the overall coordinate system for the periodic table? Or how do I tell someone where an element is located on the table? Number 2, into what major periodic table categories do the elements fit? And number 3, what are 4 families on the periodic table with special names? So without further ado, let's dive into each one of these questions. Question number 1. What is the overall coordinate system for the periodic table? Or how do I tell someone where an element is located on the table? Well, the very short answer, 5 words or less, is we use periods and groups or families as the coordinate system on the periodic table. In terms of the periods, they run left and right across the long dimension of the table, and they increase beginning with period 1 from hydrogen to helium, and all the way to period 7 from francium to oganesson. And you'll also notice that as you move down the periods from period 1 to 7, the periods pick up more elements. Period 1 only contains 2 elements, hydrogen and helium. As we look at the periods, we also want to notice these 2 layers of elements pulled out down below. Elements with atomic numbers 57 through 70 and 89 through 102. If you glance up here in the gap, you'll see where 57 through 70 fit. So they fall within period 6, and 89 through 102 fall within period 7. So periods run horizontally, the long dimension of the table, left to right, and they are the first part of the coordinate system for the periodic table. The second part is the groups or families, and there are 18 of these, and they run vertically. So they run top to bottom on the periodic table. But you'll notice that these purplish lines only run through the top part of the table. So that brings us to these 2 layers of elements at the bottom again. And you'll notice that there's a gap in the table where these elements go. But you will also notice group 2, group 3, and in the gap there is no group number or no family number. So the elements that are pulled out at the bottom of the table are not assigned a group or family number. They have a period designation, but they are not considered within one of the 18 groups or families of the periodic table. So with the exception of these 2 layers of elements at the bottom of the table, we can use the group or family number to reference an element's location along with the period. So just who is in group 3 anyway? So there's another question we need to kind of look at briefly just so you're aware. Well, if you look at group 3, according to webelements.com, in periods 6 and 7, we have luteum and lawrencium, with lanthanum and actinium beginning the 2 layers of the elements at the bottom. But if we go over to ChemLibreText and look at their periodic table for group 3, they have lanthanum and actinium in periods 6 and 7, with luteum and lawrencium pulled out to join the elements at the bottom of the table. So just be aware that there's a little bit of a conversation amongst chemists about which 2 elements really belong in periods 6 and 7 of group 3. It's not a huge deal for us because we don't, in the chemistry classroom, encounter them. And so just be aware that you may see that difference depending on the periodic table that you happen to be using. So that's it for periods and groups in the coordinate system. Question number 2. Into what major periodic table categories do the elements fit? Well, in terms of these categories, we're talking about these major collections of periodic of elements that we can lump the elements into based on their physical and chemical property similarities. And so there are what I call three major categories plus. We have those highlighted in red, yellow, and the purplish color. Those are the three major categories. And then we have this plus group down here. So let's talk about each one of those briefly. The red highlighted category is known as the metals, and most of the elements on the periodic table of the 118 known are metals. In fact, it's almost 3/4 of them. 74% fall into this metals category. The yellow category, highlighted category, is the metalloids or semi-metals. There are only 6 of them, and they form this stair step, kind of dividing the table to a left portion, right portion. And there are, when you run the numbers, those 6 make up about 5% of the total. The third category, major category, is the nonmetals. And they are here, most of them on the right, but you will also see hydrogen over here on the left. Even though hydrogen is located within family 1, its chemical and physical properties align better with the nonmetals over here on the right. And in terms of a percentage of total, the nonmetals make up about 17% of the total 118 elements. And then finally, the plus category. The plus category is down here for a couple reasons in my mind. First, polonium and astatine are somewhat disputed. Some people will put either one of them in with the semi-metals. Some people will put both of them in. Some people will pull them out. So I just chose for our presentation to leave them out of any one of the major categories. So be aware again that there's a little bit of a discussion among chemists about what to do with them in terms of these 3 major categories. And then elements 113 through 118 are very new, and quite frankly, I don't think we really know what to make of them yet as far as their properties and how they line up with these 3 major categories. So there we have the 3 major categories plus the metals, semi-metals or metalloids, and the nonmetals. And the plus category makes up about 7% of the total. So question number 3 and the final question. What are 4 families on the periodic table with special names? These 4 families have special names related to how they occur and their properties. And the other part of that is they're named specially because they occur so frequently in compounds and in chemistry. So it just makes it easier to refer to the family, and because of the special name being linked to certain groups, we know which family it's talking about. So the first special family name is alkali metals. This is group 1 minus hydrogen. So the alkali metals are lithium through francium in group or family 1. The second family with a special name are the group 2 elements, and they are referred to as the alkaline earth metals, beryllium through radium. The entire family, alkaline earth metals group 2. The third family with a special name is the halogens over here in group 17 or family 17, and they are fluorine through tennessonine. And last but not least, the fourth family with a special name is the noble gases, group 18 on the periodic table, all the way to the right, and the group 18 elements are helium through oganesson. So the 4 special families: group 1, the alkaline metals; group 2, the alkaline earth metals; group 17, the halogens; group 18, the noble gases. So there you have it. With a little practice, you should be able to answer chemistry questions and conduct chemistry investigations by using or referring to the overall coordinate system for the periodic table, elements within each major periodic table category, and or the 4 special family names on the periodic table. So that's it for this short content video, the periodic table of elements part 2. We come to the end here, and as always, we like to say, be safe and do science.